morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity. It's such a beautiful day today. It's a little clearer outside, and enjoy that. Boy, this air quality has been an interesting experience. So today we're just going to leave all that outside the doors and come into the presence of this room, and we welcome everybody that's joining us on live stream. We're going to go into this satsang meditation, and we always start with chanting. You know, it's said that when you sing, you pray twice, and we encourage you to sing with us. Norma and I will be the call, and Larry will be the response. And just to sing these affirmations into your being, to lift you into your higher consciousness, and just kind of leave the weight of the world outside of this room for this hour. Give yourself this time for reprieve and remembrance of the true nature that lives within each and every one of us.
Heaven. Good morning, everyone. There's a lot of concern these days about climate change and the rather drastic solutions that would be required to stave off the unimaginable devastation that our planet could experience if we don't curb our greenhouse gases and really what it means to curb human consumption and greed. There's a lot of beautiful alternative energies that are being developed in the solar industry and wind and water. But there's something missing that is critical to our survival. And it is this. You can find it in this particular quote from this particular book I'm going to be talking about today, Hidden Messages in Water. Can we have this first PowerPoint up, please? Humans are the only creatures that have the capacity to resonate with all others, creatures and objects found in nature. We can speak with all that exists in the universe. We can give out energy and also receive energy in return. However, this ability is a two-edged sword. When people act out only on their own greed, they emit an energy that serves to destroy the harmony within nature. The defiling of our earth is the result of an unrelenting hunger for convenience and the fulfillment of greed initiated by the Industrial Revolution. This has led to lifestyles of mass consumption that seriously threatens the global environment. We have embarked on a new century, a time in history when we must make serious changes in the way that we think. I'm not going to go through that all again because most of you are aware of this particular scenario that we're talking about. But I will say of late, the take-home containers in restaurants are all plastic. And I wonder how many people reuse that plastic or even recycle it. But these plastic containers are, it will take a long time for them to biodegrade. And I have a suggestion for people, especially in the Western culture. Let's not take any food home from restaurants. What you haven't finished from your plate, leave it there. Don't receive any more of these plastic containers with the idea that I'll save a few bucks by reheating it later, because those plastic containers are adding to the problems that our planet is facing. And beside that, that particular quote ends with the way we think. And that's the missing ingredient in how we are going to resolve the problems we have here on this planet. The problem is the way human beings think and feel about themselves, others, and life in general. That's all of it. It's time to take responsibility for the way we think about ourselves, others, and life in general. So we are no longer in a position where we can assume this high elitist position of being right, that it's okay for us to exploit the environment for whatever we can get out of it. There has to be some awakening within us. We have to learn how to deal with a word we have ignored. And that word is enough. 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 Test your desires, your demands against that word, because it is critical to the future of your life's happiness and to the harmony of this planet. When the real solution has to do with changing our way, the way we think about ourselves. Because what we're doing with food and alcohol and drugs, we're trying to alleviate a disturbance within us. That disturbance is self-betrayal. That disturbance is caused, that anxiety, that angst is caused by an irreconcilable idea of ourselves. For we see ourselves as being separate and special, when in fact we're not. We need to be aware of our interconnectedness with everything, everyone that lives and shares this planet with us. Unless we get there, unless there's an opening to that awareness, you see, we will just destroy ourselves. Our greed will destroy us. And it doesn't take a lot. It takes some mindfulness and understanding. For us, the masters have stated down through the ages, everyone and everything we interconnect with is part of us. 20 years ago, a Japanese scientist named Masaru Emoto began experiments with water. His first experiments were rudimentary, but as he got into researching water itself, which is possibly one of the most important elements on the planet, he began to discover that water has a unique soul of its own. He first began experimenting with music. He would take a bottle of water and he would put speakers beside it, and he would play different types of music. He would play classical music to some bottles of water, and then different bottles of water he'd play all rock music, rap music, and heavy metal. And then what he would do is he would freeze the water, and he would look at the crystals that were created by that water under a microscope. And he discovered that classical music created these beautiful crystals, symmetric crystals, mandalas. And yet, the heavy metal music created distorted, deformed water images. And this led him to further research words. What do words and expressions, would they actually have an effect on water? And so what he began to do is he would take a bottle of water and he would tape to it different attitudes in words. Sometimes short statements, sometimes just a word, and face it in toward the water. And then he would freeze the water and examine the crystals. And he discovered that positive words and caring, considerate words like love and appreciation created beautifully symmetrical symbols, mandalas, gorgeous. And words like hate and dissension and fear created distorted, deformed water images. This amazing discovery, by the way, he was then able to photograph the crystals, and he would log the different types of water and what it was exposed to, and then he'd photograph these crystals. And then when he had enough of them, he wanted to share this truth about the ability of water to mirror back to us our thoughts. None of the publishers in Japan would publish his photographs of the crystals. So what he did is he published them himself and just started sending this book of photographs and some explanations with them to friends and family and acquaintances he knew. And there was such an incredible response from them, because they all started ordering more that they wanted to give to their friends and their family, because they were having an emotional experience just looking at these photographs. And since then, of course, it went worldwide. This book was a huge worldwide bestseller. It's amazing how something like this didn't find its way into our school system. But in any case, the responses and the testimonies that came back to him through the mail by the thousands were positive, that the photographs themselves had an effect on the way people experienced it. Let me have this next PowerPoint, please. Here's some of the photographs from Emoto's work with water crystals. You can see the beautiful crystals on love and peace, thank you. But when you look at I will kill you, which is the next to last one on the bottom, look at what happens to the water. And that one on the top right, that's the dam that has water. And that that really is a distorted crystal. That water is really not in very good condition until it received a blessing from a Zen monk. And I don't have the picture after the monk blesses the water, but I'll show it to you next week. And it becomes a gorgeous crystal after it receives this blessing. So here's proof of the way we think about ourselves and others and life in general. And some of the testimonies that came back corroborate this so thoroughly. Can we have this next PowerPoint, please? Oh yeah, this is two. One is, "You are beautiful." That's the crystal that was formed on the water where he had that printed. And the other one was, "You fool." And we got that distorted, didn't turn into a crystal really to speak of. And so let me have this next PowerPoint, please. No, we should have one before that. No, okay. The testimony given by the woman that actually catapulted Masaru Emoto's career was so phenomenal and so beautiful about how she spoke in terms of being able to see and have this proof before our eyes of the effect that our thoughts and our emotions have on water would be such a breakthrough for human consciousness. And so she then invited him and arranged for him to have his first lecture in Switzerland. Since then, he's been lecturing. He lectured all over the world until he passed on some years ago. So we see that this kind of understanding is amazing, and it seems so new to us. But we cannot even begin to imagine how we have avoided our necessity for mindfulness. We have avoided it because we're not fully awake in the way we live. We're not fully awake in our experiences, which are coming to us all the time as a reflection of the way we think and feel about ourselves most of the time. I remember Swami Rama when he got to New York City and nobody ever knew anything about him. And we brought him into the ARE to speak. And he said, basically, if you don't like your life, change your mind. That's it. I mean, all the stuff that we are doing comes down to being mindful of what it is we are thinking and feeling most of the time. And you see, this is not something new. This is something that has existed down through the ages. So I can take this next PowerPoint, and this is the Master of Life. This is my edit of it. I'm bringing it into the present moment because, unfortunately, the translators of the scripture, back when they were translated from the original Aramaic to the Greek, and the Hebrew to the Greek, and then finally to the English, they had a big problem because they allowed the language to dictate to them what was actually being said, because in the actual Aramaic and Hebrew, there is no past, future tense. There is only the present. So I'm bringing their scriptures that they translated into the present, because there it makes a lot more sense. This is Matthew 12, 34 to 37. For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. The good person out of his good treasure brings forth good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure brings forth evil. I tell you, each day of judgment, people are rendering account for every careless word they utter. For by your words you are being freed, and by your words you are being condemned. I'll take that again. Why hasn't this become a focused piece of information in every Christian church? Because there seemed to arise early on in the 3rd century a need for there to be a separate, distant heaven and a distant God that we have to appeal to get to intervene in our difficult, desperate lives to change the horrible things that we're going through. Well, what if it came down to the fact that there is no separate, distant God? We are made in the image and likeness of God and given permission to live and wake up to the fact that our thinking and feeling is creative and causing not only what takes place in our lives, but what takes place collectively in our world. Take to heart this truth. It's never gone away. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. The good person out of his good treasure brings forth good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure brings forth evil. What need is there for a distant, judgmental God we have to face after we drop the body? I tell you, each day of judgment, people are rendering account for every careless word they utter. For by your words you are being freed, and by your words you are being condemned. Isn't it wonderful that we have a benevolent Creator that has given us this incredible life in which we can reflect upon our thinking and our actions? You know what we've been able to do? We've been able to have really negative, mean, resenting thoughts and not recognize how the initial feeling of revenge that came when we were thinking that in relationship to someone else or something else, how that initial feeling of revenge got our adrenalines going, and so we felt charged. But then it's not too long after that that you feel a feeling of emptiness and depression. And then you wonder why the next morning things don't go right. And you don't feel good. You don't feel good because you've ignored the majesty of the living God within you. So everything we're doing in unity is an attempt to help people understand how to feel good without too much physical stimulus, like too much fine food that we have to take home in plastic containers and have no regard for what's happening to our planet, or too much alcohol drinks, or even special lattes and Starbucks drinks. They tell me there's a drink now, Starbucks has a drink that costs $18. What could they put in it? Heroin? If somebody buys a drink for $18, there should be police outside. He should be immediately arrested and taken to prison. And he should be charged with extreme negligence to your physical body and tried and found guilty for being stupid. Anyway, what this particular Japanese scientist was saying, that we have become too involved in over-consuming. And that is causing a great deal of greed because we're seeking an amazing comfort. We're seeking a comfort that will only come to us when all of that plays out, when all of the stimulation from the media and the things we put in our bodies, when that finally resides and begins to diminish a little bit, something will happen. There'll be a voice, a feeling that will guide our minds to another way of feeling good, feeling joy, feeling peace, feeling fulfilled. The reason why people have a difficulty losing weight is they don't know an alternative how to feel good. And the alternative is meditation. And as you meditate, see, we don't have a dogma in unity. You know, all of these ideas that come from traditional religious organizations about what you have to do to be right with God. You do this and you do that and you do this and you do that. That's superfluous. What you really have to do is take time every day to be still and allow your own consciousness to open up to you. And it will guide you on how to eat and what to drink and what not to drink. I'm always amazed by these commercials. I cannot even believe. I'm sure you can't believe it either. How the side effects of these drugs that people are taking to try to, do away with the illnesses that they have is mind-boggling. Some of these drugs I wouldn't even allow in the community that I was living. Why would they have drugs like that with side effects? Everything from diarrhea to blindness and death if you take this drug. But then they have a beautiful butterfly flying over you. And that commercial wasn't taken on someone who was sleeping. That person was already dead. But it was the beautiful butterfly we remember. So I'll finish this by saying there's a lot of talk about setting an intention to change your life, change your conditions, change your circumstances. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with seeking a more effective, beautiful, joyful, healthy way to live. Nothing wrong with that. We should be involved with that all the time. But this idea of setting our intentions, sometimes, and a lot of times, it fails because it's half-hearted. Remember what the Master said about the abundance of the heart. What he's talking about is your feeling. When you set an intention, it needs to be a love-backed intention. You need to be so enamored by it, so filled with the idea of the fulfillment of this thing, this wonderful thing coming into your life, or this experience coming into your life. You are in love with the whole idea of it. That's a love-backed intention. That's an emotion-backed intention. And I try to help people understand that who are, some distance from enlightenment yet. I say, go back to your first romance, your first boyfriend or girlfriend that you used to sit across from at the soda fountain, perhaps, or in the park, and you'd have a Coke, and you'd be staring at each other and talking crazy stuff. But you couldn't wait to be with that person. Couldn't wait to get back to that person. You called it love, but it was really hot romance. But that's what you need to have for your intention. Every intention will work for you if you fall in love with it. Every intention, but you have to fall in love with it. No intention will work for you unless it's emotion-backed. You are so involved in wanting to see this come to pass, you're beginning to feel how you will feel when it does come to pass. That's the secret to prayer, by the way. So we're going to meditate together and listen to our beautiful Tibetan bowls. When we get to the place of silence, after we've relaxed and let these bowls are calibrated, by the way, to actually synchronize with your energy chakras in your mind and body. So if you just let yourself go not holding any negative thoughts about yourself or anybody else, and just enjoy sitting here. You don't have to be watching some high-powered movie or sitting at a bar carrying on. You just have to be enjoying the majesty of the peace of sitting here. And if you don't have a particular meditation technique, when we get to the silence, which is approximately 10 minutes long, you can use this particular mantra. My mind is the creator of me and how I see. My mind is the creator of me and how I see. as we go forth from this meditation, let us go forth with a greater awareness of living, being awake in the process of living, and making those significant changes in the way we think about ourselves, others, and life in general. Those changes that will establish healing, harmony, and peace in our lives and in our world. For this opportunity in every moment, let us feel grateful. And to this, we say, Amen. We will take an offering for unity now. Those of you that are watching this at home on a screen or wherever you are watching it on a screen, we have these different ways that you can tithe to Unity of Boulder and help us continue our ministry and even expand it as we are always in the process of doing. Those are the ways to do it. And for those of you that are seated here in the sanctuary, I want to thank you all for showing up. Appreciate having you. Looks like we have a few more than we did last week. That's always heartening as well. If you have a particular offering that you want to make, a financial offering, we have a basket in the lobby, or you can use your credit card as a dip jar in the lobby. So as we take our offerings to mind and heart, how much we'd like to give, let's bless them with this offering statement. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give.
Spread over us wings of your peace. Spread over us
morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity. Welcome, everyone, on live stream this morning. We're just going to start by singing, and we always start by singing because they say to sing is to pray twice and to call spirit into this room and leave the world outside and let us join this time of ceremony together. And sing with us.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity of Boulder. We appreciate you showing up. Those of you that showed up in the physical foundation here, that's great. To all of you that are watching this on live stream and possibly watching it on YouTube and et cetera, we appreciate you tuning in. And if you have the opportunity, why don't you text a friend and let them know that you're tuning into Unity of Boulder, because what we will be sharing is something that is life transforming. It will improve your life so amazingly that you will know the reason why unity has gone on from the very beginning of time. The truth of unity is that we are all one. We are one community, all inclusive. Nothing is excluded. The only thing excluded here at Unity of Boulder is the coronavirus. We have our special UV lights that work before the service starts, and we have everything sanitized before people get here, and we have it all set up so that you're 6 feet apart. So we're very, very safe here, and we invite you to come on down and enjoy the up-close friendship and love that comes from being part of the service here. All right, so thank you. You have a beautiful talk coming up today by Santisha, who will speak about the mystic in you. And that's because unity is an experiential way of life in which we recognize the presence of God in every person, in every place, in every condition. Thank you for being part of that.
Good morning, everyone. We would would like to invite anyone and everyone who's ever wanted to join our choir to join our Christmas production. We're starting this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. and it'll run, all the practices will be Thursday from now till our Christmas show. Normally we would do it downstairs in our small little classrooms, but obviously we can't do that right now, so we're gonna have all our practices right here in this huge sanctuary, keep everyone spaced out even while they're on stage. So we're gonna be practicing very safe social distancing even even on the stage here. So even if you've just had a friend, you don't have to be a professional singer, even if at just some point in your life you've had a friend say, hey, you're not a bad singer. That's all we're asking for. Bring that in, Norma will do the rest. And it's a great time. Everyone always finds long-lasting friendships and fellowship there during the choir. So all you have to do is just give us a call or just show up this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. right here in the sanctuary. And Santisha, later this month, will be starting a new women's book group on October 27th. That's a Tuesday, and it'll run for 5 Tuesdays. It's $25 to register and $10 for each session. They're going to be reading the book Outrageous Openness. You can sign up for that online on our website. All women are invited to attend. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Let's now take a moment for prayer. So I encourage you to relax wherever you are sitting. Take a few deep breaths. Just be present to this moment. Today, let us celebrate the fact that there is always something greater at work. Let us remember to make space in our lives for that unconditional love, that unconditional support, that unconditional wisdom that can be heard and received in the silence. So when there is chaos in our lives, we can remember and say to ourselves, there is something greater than this chaos. And then we can pause and breathe and listen and receive. There is a divine pattern for every situation. When there is a dysfunction in our lives, we can remember to ourselves and say, there is something greater than this dysfunction. And pause and breathe and receive, knowing there is a healing for every condition. When there is fear in our heart, we can remember there is something greater than this fear in my heart. And we can pause and breathe and listen and know that there is hope and peace in all circumstances. Father, Mother, God, Spirit, we are grateful that no matter what is happening in the world, we can take a moment to lean into Spirit and lean into love and listen to your guidance in the silence. Thank you, God, for this and all your infinite blessings. And to this we say, Amen.
So we want to ask you to stand up and sing with us and just feel these powerful words. And this is such a great song. I play this in my office all the time just to get connected and feeling that presence of this greater power, this greater love we call God's source. Whatever word makes you feel connected and loved.
worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you.
It's the same. Now sing with us.
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every life. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop. You never stop working. You never stop. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop. You never stop working. You never stop. You never stop working. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, waymaker. I worship you. I worship you.
Woo! Beautiful singing. Thank you. Good morning, beautiful singers. I actually need to grab something so I don't lose my spot in this here. There we go. Let me take the singing hat off. And now I will be a speaker. My voice is a little dry now. So, today's talk title is Awakening Your Inner Mystic. When I wrote the ad for this, I had no idea where my life was about to go the next day. And I was in this dreamy place writing about my childhood and growing up in a neighborhood that was just up the road from here. We actually lived on Nickel Street, so we're just about 5 blocks from here. And I had so many friends in the neighborhood. We kind of all ran in a pack. It was like we'd knock on one door and say, "Can you come out and play?" And it was like the call of all the other kids. We'd all go out, and no parents checked on us. It was kind of like you went home when it was dusk and dinner was ready, and it was kind of, the way things were in Boulder in those days. And we discovered so much magic. We flew on, we would grab many, branches of pussy willow trees and flying like Tarzans, making like mud pies together and camping in each other's backyards. And all of our parents were on some sort of a spiritual path. Boulder back in those days had more crystal shops than grocery stores. It was a hippie town, and it was an awesome place to be raised in. So every one of these kids had some sort of a spiritual philosophy, and where they may have not always agreed, we all were raised to know that we were so much more than human beings. And so we were mystical little beings that were discovering nature together. And in this area, even to this day, we're filled with deer here, and raccoons and squirrels and birds migrating and all the wonderful things. So all of the things of nature were right there in our neighborhood. And we experienced all of this together, and when I look back on it, I realized that we were all not far from God, that we really came in from a connection and knowing that there was something greater. And then as time goes on, we start to forget that reality. But being that we were taught that we were so much more, we were encouraged to discover our individual gifts. We had one kid out of all of our friends that had the gift of second sight. I knew that I always had an intuition to people's feelings. That was the gift that I was given, that I would walk in a room and be consumed by the emotions of other people versus, whether that was good or negative, it had a real keen sense of where people were at. But every one of us knew that there wasn't a gift that was better than another. It was that we all had an important piece to add to the puzzle of life. Looking back on life, that's on. I want to make sure that was on. I didn't realize that we were gaining tools that would be something that was brought into our adult life. That together we were playing out these relationships, and when we had issues and things like that, we learned how to spiritually talk to each other and not make enemies out of each other, because this pack was more important than creating separation, because it was just fun. It was a safe haven, and if you weren't part of the group, then you didn't have anything to do. In those days, parents didn't just sit and entertain you all day long. I look at my kids, and my whole life is always looking at me to be the play date, because there's so many parents that don't let kids have any freedom anymore because they're afraid, because of the news, and everything's dangerous and everything's dirty and everything, and it's so hard to raise kids at this time now. I mean, not just with COVID, even before that, we are a society of OCD and looking at everything through kind of a lens of fear, and letting children discover through their own, falling down and skinning their knees and the things that we're supposed to do, so that we learn how to build a strength within us to be able to overcome the bigger things that hit us as we become adults. I thought of this because of the fact that I was in a women's group 2 weeks ago that I was leading, and this woman said something that just stood out. I had to write it right there. And she said, when it came to her turn, "I feel like I'm homesick for a place I've never been before." And I have other people from the women's groups. Do you remember hearing that? And it stood out, didn't it? It was like it just stopped us, because it was so profound to be homesick for a place that we've never been before. And the minute that was said, I was, caught up in the thought process of, I wonder if it's a place that she's been in another lifetime, though. There has to be some sort of a sense of something to be homesick for. Right? So for me, I'm kind of homesick for the childhood that I had, to be able to bring that for my children, that I'm finding that I'm unable to bring the same kind of magic to their world. But to feel homesick for a place I've never been before, I believe we've been there somewhere. And that's the inner mystic, is to feel a sense like that. Feeling a sense of belonging to something you think you've never seen before, but there's a sense that you know that it's there. See, that's what I found inside of that, is that there's a desire for something. And I think that's what the whole spiritual path is that it's not to find enlightenment, a place that's outside of ourselves, that's self-seeking, that someday we will attain. I believe it's about a reclaiming of what we've already known. And, you know, when you think of iPads and politics and cell phones and emails and all the ways we can stay distracted from these inner urgings, we can get lost and start to feel homesick for a place that we've never been. William Wordsworth wrote, "There is a natural revelation of the divine that surrounds us in childhood, which every child breathes in and is surrounded by all the time, and knows without knowing. Natural mysticism is the environment of childhood. It is what nurtures us. The child is exposed to the cosmic revelation from birth and infancy. This is the child's world, a world that has a fresh, magical, numinous quality. Children are born as nature mystics. They approach the divine and are approached and enveloped by the divine reality through the natural world. It is the medium through which they experience and process their religious experiences. It is their teacher, friend, and constant companion. The source of wisdom, value, and enthusiasm. They see all of life through this timeless mother before everything is interpreted for them in the categories of others." And one of the things I really feel that many of us feel that are parents that have had children, we get to relive that mysticism through the eyes of our children. And it's not just witnessing it, remembering it from a real raw point of us being there as children, because it's faded for us by the time we've had our children. And then being able to witness it through their eyes re-invokes the memories of us as these powerful, co-creative beings that are so much more than human beings. And we watch that through our children, and they're kind of mirroring back to us this mystery, this mystic that's within all of us. In the book, The Undefended Self, she writes, "The baby at birth is a wide open system with free-flowing breath and an undefended responsiveness to the world. The inner sense of a separate self is not yet formed, though there are certain predispositions and tendencies inherent in the soul at birth. During the course of our birth, infancy, and childhood, we have experiences which seem to teach us that certain aspects of ourselves and of life are unsafe, wrong, and painful. On the basis of this negative learning and in an attempt to avoid pain, we shut down the full flow of life through our bodies." And you ask someone without a theology degree to picture a mystic, and they might imagine a yogi meditating on a mountaintop, maybe the whirling dervishes of Turkey, or a nun living in a monastic life of fervent prayer. People slightly more familiar with the word may even be able to name a few of the best-known mystics like Rumi, Saint Teresa of Avila, the Spanish nun known for writing about her mystical experiences, including levitation, and there's drawings of her levitating. They live or lived in a place and a time far removed from anything we can relate to today. Nobody envisions a mystic plodding outside to grab the mail, or doing the monotonous things that us humans do to basically get by, like paying our bills on the phone and sitting through all those things and hit 1 now and hit 8 and hit 5. I don't see a mystic doing that in my mind. But that doesn't mean that you're not. And it doesn't mean that we can't evoke the inner mystic as well. What I believe a mystic is a person who has direct experience of the sacred, unmediated by conventional religious rituals or intermediaries. Achieving that sacred or divine experience requires transcending established belief systems and bypassing the intellect and dissolving identification with the ego self. To qualify as a mystic as one who has had a mystical experience. How many of you will say that you've had a mystical experience in your life? And that's what draws us to come back to our spiritual centers or to our churches to be reminded. Because that mystical experience, that's the longing of a place that we think that we've never been before, but it's the longing of that mystical experience and wanting to evoke it more constantly and consistently in our lives. So we're opening up to the inner mystic. I don't believe that the children that I ran around that neighborhood had any more greater special abilities than all of you. We all have had a soul group. Like for us, we almost felt like secretly we all kind of came through our individual parents and met as a soul group here without telling our parents. Like we used them to get to each other, right? That idea of the soul family that Edgar Cayce talks about makes us feel less alone when we're going through difficult times, right? When we're feeling like we're kind of pushing through life and we might be going through a divorce right now, or we might be going through, friends falling away that no longer serve the spiritual qualities of your life. And you wonder if this is just a lonely life to be lived. But when you really start to look into the ethereal realms and the honor that comes with that ethereal realm, there's always love backing everything that's happening in our life. So even the things that are painful have something to move into that energy. And to call on your soul friends that you might have not met yet here and saying, I'm ready, God, to find my soul sisters and brothers that I want to walk this path with so I can share this mysticism, this spiritual feeling, this connection to this greater something. Because you just lose time when you find those friendships and you mirror back and share even more to encourage more awakening, more enlightenment through these relationships. Mysticism is neither a faith nor a belief, nor is it a principle or a dogma. A mystic is born being a mystic. They have a certain temperament, a certain outlook on life. It is for this reason that many are focused by the word mystic, because mysticism cannot be explained in plain words. So it's really an inner journey to find out what we believe about mysticism. So I wrote that advertisement or blog or whatever we call it when I let you guys know what I'm going to be talking about on Sunday, and had so much fun talking about the swinging on the branches and the playing with mud and camping with friends and our little secret world and all of that. And then, little did I know that the next day I was going to have one of the worst days I've had in months. And it started this way. This is the worst part of the day. My children were supposed to start school again this last Friday. And obviously, they've been out of school since March, so you think of all those months. And my kids are not little kids. They're 12 and they're 14 years old. Even my 14-year-old is going to be 15 in February. And they have been isolated because very few people are letting their children hang out with your children. And I was so looking forward to them being able to go back to school and seeing their friends. They're going to be in a hybrid situation where they'd only be at school 2 days a week. Half the school wouldn't be there, so they can keep the separation, and they'll wear masks and the whole, kit and caboodle. And I felt very confident about how the school's going about this, and I took them to get their haircuts, and we even got more new clothes because they thought they were going back in August, just to make them feel loved and excited to make it special. And then they went to their father's house. Wednesday, after they got all their haircuts and everything. So they're supposed to start school on Friday, and on Thursday afternoon, I get a text from my ex-husband that lets me know that he's enrolled them in some separate home school that will have them being online now, totally, and told the kids to not text me and interact with me for the 2 days after I get this kind of news from him. And I have been treated like this from this person in the marriage and outside the marriage. So I point these things out sometimes to explain that difficult people still exist in the world, right? And we can't change people. We can change the way we react, and mostly I have changed. I just really kind of do whatever he says because it's easier than fighting up against something that just wants to hurt people. But that time, it was like, this is not a decision he should be making without me. And I called and he never answered the phone, and there was no response, nothing. I just ended up getting emails from this new school and have to sign off that they're going to go to this school. And I found myself trying to let it roll off my back like I usually do and try to just go into a peaceful place and find peace in the midst of this once again. But here my children are so deeply affected there, and I can't hold them. I can't walk them through it, and they're not allowed to interact with me on the telephone for 2 days. So when I pick them up, so for 2 days I have to be with this. And I have a women's group I had to teach on Thursday night, and I have to be counseling people and still be there for people while I'm inside broken. The repression of that marriage is now affecting my children directly, exactly what I left to try to save myself, and now I am not there to protect them in a situation that I feel guilty about. I feel all sorts of emotions. And all day on Thursday, I'm just putting peace and calming oil on myself and joy oil, and I'm doing Bach flower essences, and I'm trying to get my breath. I can't breathe. I'm feeling like I can't breathe all day, and I'm still trying to have to be there for other people, and I can't seem to find my breath, and I'm praying for healing from God for me and for the kids, and I'm just trying to, and that would relieve it for a while, but then, fear would jump in, and guilt, and all the things that happen when you're dealing with a person that is so out of touch, so disconnected from that feeling place of what this is doing to the child. That child that we're talking about just a second ago that comes in this world with these wide eyes, and then the world starts to talk you out of your free will and your sense of creativity and your sense of beauty and your sense of wonder. And it's hard to watch that happen to your own personal children. You can't undo those cuts for them. So I picked the kids up and I tried to stay very neutral. And I didn't need to stay neutral because my son came in ablazing. So beyond had it. I mean, there's been so many things that has been like this for him. But for him, it was just a ranting. It was a cry into the universe of frustration, of why is this person this way? All these things. So I realized, so this is why I wrote about my childhood. I realized my children aren't getting that at his house. They are at my house. And I wanted to come up with the answers for them why things like this happen. Wait, that's not it. Where is my slides? I have 2 more in there. All right, I'm going to just read it. This is from Matt Kahn. Oftentimes, the attributes and the insecurities or anger we take on are from the family members we couldn't feel the most amount of love from. And subconsciously, we think in order for them to open their heart, in order for them to give the connection that I need and want, I'm just going to take on all their attributes and conditioning, hoping to lighten the load in order for them to give me what I need. I want to repeat this because this is so important. Oftentimes, the attributes and the insecurities or anger we take on are from the family members we couldn't feel the most amount of love from. So you can see why I'm concerned here.
I don't have this issue. This is about my children. My childhood is incredible. And subconsciously, we think in order for them to open their heart, in order for them to give the connection that I need and want, I'm just going to take on all of their attributes and conditioning, hoping to lighten the load in order for them to give me what I need. Now, that's what my 12-year-old daughter is doing. She defends. Well, he's just really nervous, and he's just really it's all based on fear. So she's believing in that because she doesn't want him to feel bad, that he's operating from a state of fear and disconnection from the greater importance of love moving in and through everybody in this family, not just his own wants, needs, and desires. Of course, we can't take on people's energy. We can only replicate it. So when we are mentally conditioned, we will start thinking or responding and behaving like the people from our early upbringing that were the most impressionable upon us. And when we are energetically and vibrationally conditioned, that means that you hold a vibration that is the basic vibration of the family household you were raised in, which means you are going to perceive each moment from that vibration. You are going to make choices from that vibration. So I'm trying to explain to the kids that this vibration that you are meeting is coming from his childhood. He's still living in a vibration of disconnect, of OCD. OCD is the only taught disease. It's an actual taught disease, which he has, and many people do. And it's because the parents are constantly cleaning and doing all the stuff that they do, the fear of things not being locked and stoves being on and making sure the car didn't get left on. It's just this constant over-checking yourself so that you never are in the isness and in the beingness. So if they can look upon this person as being wounded and never got the chance to run hanging from the limbs because it was dirty, scrape their knees because it was dangerous, all of the things that we as spiritual beings first before human beings have to experience so that when we do get into the real world, we don't lose that playfulness and that understanding that things can go off the rails, but we can always stay connected to this greater power, this greater love that made our childhood so whimsical. And mystics call this unlearning. What we call learning is fixing ideas in our mind. This learning is not freeing the soul, it is limiting the soul. By this, I do not mean to say that learning has no place in life, but only that learning is not all that is needed in the spiritual path. There is something besides, there is something beyond learning, and this we can only attain by unlearning. And yet who we are before we are awakened from the illusion are beings with a deep longing to be free of our early wounding. We really just want to be free. We really just want to be free. We know to tell the truth, to live an honorable life, to do what's right, to follow our hunches of kindness, to reach out to others, to be the compassion that we want to see in this world. But we don't want others to tell us what we can and cannot do. Edgar Cayce says we came in with free will. And we can move in and through our experiences, and that's why we can end up in marriages that sometimes have to end. Because they will not be healthy for the soul's development. And then you have to help these kids get through it too. So the unlearning, I realized those 2 days that I was not breathing in my office was not the Santisha of today. That was the abused Santisha of that marriage. She still lives in there, in crevices, when things come up when I see my children being stifled the way that I was for years, debating whether I should stay or leave, or should I stay or leave, even though I was so screaming from the mountaintops unhappy. To feel a cut like that, to be with someone that you loved so much that turns on you and wants to change you out of being the majesty that you're put here to be, is a very hard experience, but it grows you. And clearly, I still have more work to do. There's no tricking myself out of that not breathing thing. It was like, oh, this hurt has a little bit of a life in me still. A mystic removes the barrier that stands between himself and another person by trying to look at life, not only from his own point of view, but also from the point of view of another. All disputes and disagreements arise from people's misunderstanding of each other. And mostly people misunderstand each other because they have their fixed point of view and are not willing to move from it. This is a rigid condition of mind. The more dense a person, the more he is fixed in his own point of view. How many people have a dense person like I'm talking about right now in your life? Put your hands up. If you have somebody that you feel that sense of restriction towards you and you're still trying to figure out, how do we dance like the Turkish dervishes around this and find the peace, right? It's like, oh, we're going to avoid you. Dodge the bullet. How do we maneuver so to keep ourselves safe and not everybody else involved? I like the word dense person because it's not insulting them, it's just stuck. It's stuck energy within this perfect child of God because we are all children of God. Nobody really wants to hurt anybody, make them sick, or make them afraid. They just haven't navigated how to heal themselves, love themselves, and develop loving kindness in all relationships, right? So this is a rigid condition of mind. The more dense a person, the more he is fixed in his own point of view. Therefore, it is easy to change the mind of an intelligent person, but it is most difficult to change the mind of a foolish person once it is fixed. It is the dense quality of mind which becomes fixed in a certain idea, and that clouds the eyes so that they cannot see from the point of view of another person, right? So you feel very unseen by this dense person. You've changed your energy. You've given it more love. You've given more joy. You've sang to them. And yet nothing seems to move. Because the dense person can't see you. And so sometimes we have to make adjustments around these kind of relationships. In the book Discovering the Power Within You, it says, "Consider the lowly caterpillar. It is self-evident that the caterpillar and the butterfly live in entirely different worlds, and no one would ever say that a caterpillar is a butterfly or that a butterfly is a caterpillar. And yet we know that the caterpillar and the butterfly are simply different levels of expression of one entity. The caterpillar can't fly, but not as a caterpillar, only as a butterfly. He has the potential, but something has to happen to him. You can do the things Jesus did, but not as a man. You are now only when you are born anew into a higher state of consciousness." A caterpillar looked up and saw a colorful butterfly flitting around. He shook his head ruefully and said, "That'll never be me. I'll never be able to do that." And they never will with that kind of thought process. The caterpillar just cannot get up in flight. Yet as the caterpillar changes its embodiment, it enters a new world. Suddenly there's a whole new set of principles at work, and he releases a whole new potentiality. In human consciousness, I know there's a lot of man for women and men because these are all old books, and I don't feel like changing it around for you, but obviously I recognize this. In human consciousness, man is involved in all sorts of limitation, sin, disease, deprivation. And in this consciousness, all the things that Jesus did were absolutely miraculous. Looking as a lowly worm of the dust would see, just imagine turning water into wine, feeding 5,000 hungry people with a few loaves and fishes. healing people lame and blind since birth. Impossible, we would think, or at least miraculous and beyond duplication. Yet Jesus dealt continuously with the higher nature of people. He healed and helped and transformed people by the power of their own higher nature, and not by any special power of his own. So I have more work to do. Instead of looking at this like the universe gave me someone that just is here to torture me, there's still more work for me to grow. And I try to stay humorous about it because it's extremely frustrating, and you know what it's like when you just feel like you can't move and you can't find synergy and you can't find balance. I've got to heal this somehow. Jesus knew that everyone had within them the divine level of being, and that in the divinity of people is the limitless potential of healing anything. It is because of the divine potential within you that it can be said, regardless of any situation, it can be healed by the renewing of your mind. Emily Cady, I'll let you guys put this up. Emily Cady said it this way: "Oh, how in our ignorance we have mistaken and misunderstood God, in consequence of which we are today pygmies when he wanted to make us giants in love and health and power by manifesting more of himself through us. We would not let him because we have been afraid to say, 'Have thy way in me, manifest thyself through me as thou wilt.' Have thy way in me, manifest thyself through me as thou wilt." A mystic is someone who has an experience of union with the One, and the One may be God. It may be Mother Earth. It may be the cosmos. That experience is rare, but everyone has them. So I wanted to share a video with you that really exemplifies that oneness with nature. And this particular animal that this woman works with is something that most people will be extremely threatened and scared of. And how she's transcended what should be threatening and a fearful experience into a love affair with it. So I thought this would be a nice visual for us to kind of move from that dense experience into a love-in.
Foggy, I never liked to be touched. And then one day showed up and a wire coming out of her mouth. She actually accepted me to pet her. I was like, I'm going in. So I opened and went in, grabbed the hook. Since that day, she's become the shark that loves to be touched the most. When I start removing hooks, other sharks start showing up with hooks. I've become obsessed with removing these hooks. I do believe they communicate and they're shark dentists in. The shark will come in, eat to my stomach, and just sit there, and I just pet her. You can feel the jaw opening and closing on your lap, which is one of the most beautiful things to feel. And what I try to make people understand is sharks are not a machine, they're not a monster. This is a living, feeling creature. A shark shows up with a hook that I can tell is very uncomfortable. My brain cannot focus. It's not that as soon as they come in, I try to remove the hook. It takes a long time to build the trust. Some hooks are very easy. Some of them requires weeks. For as feared as they are, it's one of the most vulnerable animals. Their vulnerability makes me want to protect them. It was a childhood dream. And my dream job was to be an underwater scuba ranger, to go roam around the oceans of the world and make sure that the reef is protected and I will have sharks for friends. I had the opportunity to take a trip to learn how to scuba dive in the Bahamas. I did my shark feeding dive and I was just like, They dive with sharks. They work with sharks. I went back home and dropped everything. Told them, I said, I'll be back in a year, and moved to the Bahamas 24 years ago. I built this relationship by watching and by changing as the sharks changed. It's such an easy animal to be with. I read the sharks the same way I try to read my dogs. I actually read my sharks better than I read my dogs. I can see when a shark is having an uncomfortable day, and I can tell when the sharks are mellow. The food is what allows the sharks to come close enough for me to reach out and pet them. But then it's their decision to stay. I do recognize each and every one of them. I have Grandma, I have Stompy, I have Track, and I have others. These are my sharks, my babies. With the right knowledge and understanding, I think is one of the safest animals in the wild to be with. They're capable of understanding when we have food and we don't, and when we don't, they just not approach. I wear a chain suit to handle them. Not because they're aggressive or anything like that, but in the unlikely event they decide to bite. I call it the barrier that drops the barrier. Any day and spent in the water with sharks beats anything else for me. They're not these vile creatures. They're so simple sometimes. There's no shark-infested waters. The waters belong to them, and we need sharks in the waters. These are the ambassadors, and they're my sharks, and I will take care of them as much as I can.
I love how she talks about how she's known since a young child that she was going to do that, and she really did manifest what she was shown she was supposed to do in her life. So many people don't listen to that call. But I liked what she said about the chain suit being the barrier to eliminate the barriers. I like that visual for us when we're dealing with difficult relationships, that the meditation is the barrier that gets rid of the barrier of communication. More meditation, more beingness, more visualizing this person being more open-hearted, more speaking to their strengths instead of their limitations, more loving kindness in your prayers, and seeing openness, seeing healing, seeing, and just thanking God that God is Spirit, is the divine master that is moving in and through everything of our life. So to get out of our own way and to believe and trust in the miracle that you can manifest. Thank you.
Well, freely we have once again received inspiration to live by. It is so incredible that we can, in this world where there is, the media just programs that there's so much dissension, and yet unity continues to share our way to rise above it, flow through it. Beautiful messages like this and demonstrations like this offer us the opportunity to be ourselves healers among those people in the world. For just carrying that feeling of being okay and unafraid actually translates and touches everyone else around us. Just as the love of that woman with the sharks. If we carry that love with us, it's going to move and touch every soul that we're in contact with. So we have surely freely received. Now we have an opportunity to freely give back and help support Unity of Boulder and the messages that we share here. For those of you online or watching this on live stream, we have these particular ways that you can share a gift with Unity of Boulder. We certainly appreciate it. And those of you that are here in the sanctuary, if you have a physical financial gift you want to give, we have a basket in the lobby, and we have the credit card dip jars. so you can leave a gift that way. Let's all bring to mind the gift we'd like to give to Unity of Boulder and feel the love and the joy that's being expressed here and how it's healing the collective consciousness of mankind. So I will share this affirmative idea, and you can just take it to heart or share it with me if you know it by now. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give. And so it is. All right.
So I chose this song not just because it's morning time and it's such a great way to start off a beautiful morning like this, but because it's full of so much gratitude. I've just always loved this song. When I told my mom I was singing it, she told me that her dad, my Grandpa Joe, that this was one of his all-time favorite songs. So I'd like to dedicate this to him. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where his feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, Eden's soft play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
All right, well, that completes our service, and we want to ask you to stand up, and we'll just close with song, and we always have fellowship afterwards on the patio, or right outside, really, and I can meet you out there. And then we have prayer partners available to you over here with a sash on if you're having, the difficulty today, or even want to share joy with somebody. Just stay seated in your seat, and the prayer partner will come and find you.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be with God as Creator. Family all are we. Let me walk with my family in perfect harmony. Let there be peace with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To live each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
And so it is. Have a great week.
Alive, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith, I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith, I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. Release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God.